Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Monday night, which means it's ladies' night, and I'm joined by Holly and Lily. Good evening.
Evening.
Good to see you. As always, plenty to talk about as we look back at what's happened at Newcastle United and in football over the last 7 days. And following on from last night's show, which has met great acclaim, people really enjoyed it. I think it was the feel-good factor last night as we talked about The Great Escape, which is available now on the playlist. Have a look, give it a watch. It was a good laugh and a good night last night. So if you missed it, don't forget to give it a watch. Let's talk about the result. Holly, we've had a couple of days to think about it. You, of course, were on last night, but it's still good, isn't it, when you can, on a weekend, sit and watch Match of the Day after watching Match Day live and just revel in the fact that we got something out of a game against the league champions.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games that you watch the highlights on repeat, especially the last 5 minutes, because it was just a 5 minutes of madness, really, wasn't it? And it's just brilliant to get the points off Liverpool, because it's a team that we don't really do that well against, that are a hard team to play. They've got a fantastic squad, excellent manager, and to get a point at Anfield's just brilliant. And the way it happened as well, because we felt so deflated when obviously we'd felt like we'd been beaten because our Callum Wilson's goal got ruled off, and then Willock came and scored that equaliser. It was just absolutely brilliant, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic, and we'll be talking a little bit about Joe Willock a little bit later. Lily, great result, for Newcastle, the one which, it was unexpected. You're going in against Liverpool, and they'd hit a bad run of form, but they were starting to get their game back in gear. We were all fearing the worst. I think we all expected, goals in the game. But yeah, 1-1. We could have nicked it 2-1. I suppose on the first half performance, Liverpool probably could have been 5 or 6 up, but they weren't. And we got a good point.
I'll admit, as you know, I was at work, so unfortunately, shockingly, I missed it. But I did put on Twitter as I left for work that I'd have took a win, but I'll settle for a point. A draw will do me. So somebody else said, "Oh, my life, you predicted that really well, didn't you?" And like Holly said, I'll admit, by the time I got in from work, I put Match of the Day on literally for the last 8 minutes of our match. And I was just like, oh, this is good. I enjoy watching this. Like I said, I take a point every day of the week against Liverpool. They're not a good team to play against. I don't understand how Wilson's goal wasn't allowed. I've watched it and watched it and re-watched it and watched it and watched it. And even our delivery driver, even he said that shouldn't have been disallowed by VAR. It's no, brilliant to watch. And I enjoyed watching Match Today. I haven't watched it for ages. I just couldn't believe it. I flicked it on the off chance and it was our game. I was just like, woo, yes, I got it in time. So that's as good as I'm getting to watch it. But no, I'll take a point every day. And it should have been a win, but
Yeah, it should have been. Never mind, we'll settle for a point. Obviously, we did the show last night. We're just talking about, when do you think this all started? The Great Escape. Was it when Graham Jones came in? Do you think it was after the Brighton defeat, which was a bit of a shock? A few of us last night were talking about that little run of games when Graham Jones came in. We were starting to get a few draws. We weren't conceding as many goals. When do you think our season changed and we managed to climb away from the relegation trapdoor?
I said on last night's show that I think we'd started to pull away from danger a couple of games before that Brighton defeat. I think we were starting to turn our form around and look like a better side. But in hindsight now, I think the Brighton game helped us out a lot in a weird way, because I think that gave them the urge to actually realise, no, we can't carry on like this, not putting in enough effort. We need to put 100% in now and get the results, because Bruce isn't going to go. Because I do believe at one point they were playing to try and get Bruce sacked, and Mike Ashley made that plain and clear that Bruce wasn't going anywhere. So it was their time now to actually step up and do a job, because playing to get the manager sacked when he's not going to is just going to get us relegated, and that's not going to be helpful to anyone. So I think that after that and that talk that Jamal Lascelles had with the team really, really helped. And as well, Matt Ritchie and Martin Dubravka coming into the side had a big impact, I feel, because those are two of our most strongest characters on the pitch and the really leader figures that we need at the moment.
Yeah, what about you, Lee? Would you say the same, or have you got a different opinion?
Well, we all know that we changed slightly when Jones was appointed. We noticed a quick changing thing, but then we seemed to hit another lull again. But I think, yeah, definitely around the Brighton game, the players suddenly thought, hang on a minute, no, this isn't good enough. Bruce isn't going anywhere. We need to start playing for us fans. We need to start playing for ourselves, because you've got to have pride when you're playing. And a lot of the players seem to have lost that. It's almost like they've realised that, I am proud to wear a black and white shirt, and I do want to show the fans that I want to wear my shirt, because they just didn't like the backlash that they were getting, be it social media, be it even the pundits had started to say, hang on a minute, this isn't right. So I think definitely around the Brighton game is where they really did start to pick it up a bit. I think that's when we realised that a change was needed, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was around about then. From your perspective as well, Holly's just mentioned the players coming back in, Lee. I mean, Martin Dubravka, we were talking on this show for weeks about, should Darlow be given the chance to stay in goal this season and, keep Dubravka on the bench. But, that was one decision Bruce had to make. But then, he's brought Murphy back in. I made the point on more than one occasion over the weekend that, Bruce deserves a bit of praise as well. He clearly had issues in the dressing room, but he sorted them out. He brought Ritchie back in and, brought Sean Longstaff back in, and neither of them have let us down.
No, I think Bruce realised. I think Bruce was probably the bigger person with regards to the Ritchie incident, because we all know that played out very publicly with regards to the fallout from when he sent him on and he said he hadn't passed on his instructions that time. But there is noticeably a change since Dubravka and Ritchie has come back. I feel Bruce was stuck between a rock and a hard place, because, Darlow was getting praise, but he did start to look a bit shaky. So I think he did make the right call in bringing Dubravka back. But I think, same as Holly said, Dubravka and Ritchie are very vocal on that pitch. They like to be heard. They lead by example. They lead from the front as well. So I think that probably is a rarity that anybody's going to say this, but I think Bruce did make the right call there, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong about praising Steve Bruce when he's done something right. I mean, we can all criticise him. It's easy to criticise somebody, but ultimately the guy's had a pretty horrendous season, but he's pulled it round, and you've got to thank him for that, Lee. At the end of the day, we want to see Newcastle do well. We don't want to see Newcastle go down. We know how important it is staying in the Premier League if this takeover is going to go through, and ultimately, Steve Bruce is still the person who has to pick that team. Plus, we could be in a position where if the takeover is still dragging on through the summer, I don't think Steve Bruce will be losing his job, and if these players are going to be here and Bruce is going to be the manager, then we need them to be playing for Steve Bruce, don't we? Until that takeover can be given the red rubber stamp.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, Newcastle's under-23s were playing today, and they won 2-0. They were playing Crystal Palace. Adam Wilson and Kyle Crossley scored today. And the good news from that game for Newcastle United fans was that Fabian Schär played, and there he is in action today. Good to see him back. Good to see him getting minutes getting minutes on the pitch today. Holly, that's a great, it's great news going into the final round of fixtures.
It is. I'm a massive fan of Fabian Schär. I think on his day, he's one of the best centre-backs at the club, because I think he's something a little bit different to what we already have. He's someone that can attack as well as defend, and we all know he has got a good shot when he tries. Unfortunately, he seemed to drop off a little bit when Steve Bruce took over as manager. I feel like he wasn't as good as he had been under Rafa Benitez. But then he started to look a little bit better in the past few weeks. And then he got that injury. It's just so unfortunate for him. But now that he seems to be getting a little bit more fit, obviously he's playing with the under-23s today. And if he can get fitness towards the end of the season and train in the summer, then I'd love to see him as a part of the starting 11 going into the new season.
Yeah, what about you, Lily? It would be great to see him, get some minutes under his belt in the next few games, wouldn't it? Just coming back in. I've seen a bit of criticism of Kieran Clark on Twitter today, but I think it's pretty much uncalled for. The guys have all done their best over the last few games. Certainly got us the results. Everyone's gonna make mistakes in games, but Kieran Clark's been a fairly solid player for us. He's never let us down.
No, it's. I think sometimes players get unfair comments, or it's just people wanting to, there's been no friction today on Twitter, let's just say something to start, see where this will go. It is nice to see Shah playing, get a bit of time under his belt, even if it is with the under 23s. You've got to build up. We don't want him to come straight in and get injured, and same as Holly says, he's an all-out player. You can't really fault him. He did dip a bit, when Bruce first came in, but I think a lot of players, Don would say it was Bruce bald, it seemed to have a knock-on effect to a lot of people. So hopefully he will be back before the end. I can think of quite a few people out there that will be happy to see him back. Yeah. Even if it's just on the bench. Finish the season. Definitely, most definitely.
100%. It's good to see players coming back and getting back from fitness. I will come to your comment because I want to discuss that. I just want to say, glad to see Julie Baker, who is a regular in the chat, has got a T-shirt on tonight. I've just got that on Twitter, Julie. Well done. And it's funny because, we know all of you in the chat, but we don't know what a lot of you look like. So we now know what your wrist looks like, and we now know that you wear a watch. I think apart from that, and you've got your cult T-shirt. Other than that, Julie, you're still a woman of mystery. But I'm glad you got your T-shirt, and well done to John. Well done to John for sending it out. But there you are, Julie. That was your 2 seconds of fame. Yano says, I've said it 3 times before. Lascelles has been outwavered, and we won 2 games out of the first 3 without him every time. 6 of our 9 wins. Fact. Holly, is that, Lascelles, he's been out. I mean, he did his bit. He scored a couple of crucial goals and then obviously got injured. We've discussed it before on here. Is that a bit unfair to Lascelles, or do you agree with Yano?
Well, a few weeks ago, I probably would have agreed with him because I've just been slating Lascelles all season, constantly, because I just really, really don't think he's been good enough. And I don't know how he can actually sit there and not feel embarrassed because he just hasn't been captain in this team. It's a time now where you need your captain to step up. And I feel like he's been so absent. But I'm not as annoyed with him lately because obviously that chat that he had with the players at the Brighton game had a big effect, or at least it seems to have had one. And then also he scored those 2 crucial goals, which really helped us get those 2 points that we needed a lot at that time, which then kick-started our little run. So you've got to give him a bit of credit for that, but that is only a few weeks in a short period of time. But across the whole season, he hasn't been good enough. But I think Yano is being a little bit harsh there because, yes, it is a fact, but I don't think Lascelles is the whole reason why we are him being out or why we're now winning games. Although I do think centre-backs such as Paul Dummett coming into the side do a better job than Jamal Lascelles, and I think he stepped up to the mark more, especially with it being his boyhood club and him being a Geordie. I think that's had a big impact as well.
Yeah, Lascelles often creates a bit of discussion lately online, and has obviously been quite consistent with his comments on our show about it. Would you agree? I mean, is it down to him not being in the team that we're starting to get things right?
It's always one of those. Do you know, it just so happens that the game goes our way when a certain player isn't playing. You could say, do we keep winning because I'm at work, or is it because Sam only watches the second half? It's those things, isn't it? Statistically, it just so happens we haven't done well when he's there. But same as Holly just said, he's meant to be our captain. And he was a brilliant captain. He was very vocal. He would give instructions and stuff. But that just seems to have petered out a little bit. And I can't help but think, does he not want the captaincy anymore? Or is he feeling like people just aren't listening to him? And, same as Holly just said, other players are more vocal. Does he maybe feel like he just doesn't need to be as vocal anymore? But I know that, I've got but not everybody likes every player. So it could just be that he's just not his cup of tea and he'll find any reason to pick and moan about him being on the pitch. It's just one of them things, isn't it? But I think we do sometimes miss him, but not as much as what we have done in the past, maybe, I think is where we are with him at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. There you go. We've all got opinions about it. Graham W says Lascelles scored twice to get 2 points. One because the team started scoring, and lots of other comments coming in. Which one did I want to come up with? Yeah, says Clark's playing poorly because he's not comfortable in the centre. When was the last time we won with Lascelles playing? We'll have to look through the record books for that, I think. But I get your point, I know exactly where you're coming from. Chrissy says Lascelles just drops back far too much. He gives stickers far too much time to have a strikers. I think you mean not stickers, far too much time to have a dig. He's not good enough and would be one of the 8 I would get rid of. Tom's asking us, Holly, who would you get rid of in the summer? Is there anybody you would show the door in the summer when the transfer window opens? Because that is something which we're going to have to start thinking about. Does it depend on the takeover? Because I suppose if we've got money to burn, then it doesn't matter who you let leave because the players you're going to bring in is going to be better. But if you haven't got any money to spend, I mean, according to the papers today, we're going to have an £83 million windfall coming from the Premier League. So we might have a little bit. But what's your views? Who would you like to see out of the club?
It does massively depend on the takeover because, of course, if we did get a takeover, I think you'd be getting rid of quite a few players. If it didn't happen, then you wouldn't be able to do that. You could only get rid of a handful. And you have got to be careful because we all know that we don't really bring in replacements. Like, I thought it was madness when we let Yedlin go and then kept Kraft ahead of him because I don't think Kraft's even half as good as DeAndre Yedlin, but that's an argument for another day. But who I'd get rid of? Probably, well, it's hard. I know Dwight Dale signed a contract, but I would have got rid of him before he'd signed that contract, to be honest. Andy Carroll, I'd let him go. Who else? Atsu, you've got to really let Atsu go. I think it's time to move on from him. Shelby, I would probably let go. In terms of defenders, to be honest, I don't think I'd get rid of any of the defenders. I think they're relatively okay. But certainly in the midfield, that's where we need to sort it out the most. And I would be definitely signing Joe Willock. But I think Shelby's got to be a priority to go. Atsu, and then Andy Carroll are probably the 3 I'd get rid of if we didn't have a takeover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, Chrissy, I did get you there. It was strikers. I understood what you meant. Don't worry, mate. I got there in the end. Yeah, Lee, what about you? Who would you like to see shown the door? Joe Linton, bye-bye, says Trulls.
I agree with Hull. Definitely Shelby. The bit of the match that I did see on the match today, and same as Don pointed out to me, we were in that, and he kicked the ball back down. Why? You could have just as easily passed the ball. He just doesn't, or he just gets through the ball as quick as he can. It's almost like he's not looking where he's taking it to. I think his legs have gone, and he just doesn't seem to be the person he was originally. So I think definitely Shelby. Maybe Carroll. I know that's controversial. It's nice that he come back to the club and what have you, but it's not like we're playing the right kind of football to suit him either. So he's not even coming on anymore, or as much as a substitute. So he's just sat there, keeping the bench warm kind of thing. And yeah, but same as you've all said, it depends on the takeover. And if the takeover did happen this time, would we actually, right, we're selling you, so we need to replace you, rather than, we'll sell you from midfield and we'll get somebody from totally not the right position. We don't seem to buy in what we've sold, and I think that's what our main problem tends to be during the transfer window. But if takeover doesn't happen, I think it's going to be quite slim pickings. And yeah, but I agree with everybody else. I'd like to keep Willock. I think he's been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I think he's amazing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Willock. I mean, just nabbed this off the Newcastle United website today. Went up on their Twitter. Joe Willock scored 3 goals in his last 3 appearances for Newcastle. All of the goals have come from the bench. Yeah, we know that. But I mean, he's been a super sub. He didn't like being called it at the weekend in the interviews. But Holly, that's what he's been, and he's been a valuable acquisition in the loan window.
He certainly has. When he first came in and he scored in his first game in his debut, I think everyone was absolutely amazed by him. And then when he didn't score the next game and he wasn't playing as well, a lot of people were like, oh, he's rubbish, we should bring the Longstaffs back in. And I was like, whoa, that's a bit like of a rash kind of reaction. But I was always convinced to stick by him because I think he's got so much potential, even from the first few games we've seen him. And I think you could see how much talent he has got, that he'll develop into a really good player in the future, I believe. And then he started to be absolutely brilliant lately and proven why he could play in the first team for a team like Newcastle week in, week out. And Steve Bruce, I've been praising him quite a lot lately because there's not much to criticise him on, but that is the only thing that's annoying us, is that he's leaving Joe Willock on the bench, because surely after these past 3 games, what has he got to do to get a start? Like, he should be in that starting 11 regardless now. And then he's putting like Shelby in, and I know Shelby's like is like vice captain or whatever that's taken the place for Lascelles, but he's not really good enough and he's just been rubbish, and none of the fans have been enjoying watching Shelby play. So just let Joe Willock start. He's someone for the future, and if we want to have any hope of Joe Willock wanting to stay at Newcastle in the summer, then we need to be starting him, because will Joe Willock want to sign to Steve Bruce if he's not even going to give him a start after what he's done in the past 3 games? I don't think so. So from now till the end of the season, I will be putting him in that starting team and giving him whatever he wants, and I think he's a bargain for 20 million.
Yeah. What about you, Lily? I mean, Willock's been a fantastic signing, hasn't he? And certainly scored some crucial goals to keep us in this division.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, he's definitely made an impact, but I agree with Holly. If you want, you think, oh, we might offer you a contract, well, no, because you're not starting me, and nobody's going to want to stay at a team if there's not a guaranteed start. But this last few games, he's just been amazing, absolutely fantastic. And again, when I've been at work, the lads have all said to me, do you know if you're going to be keeping him? Are you going to be signing him? I'm like, I just watch the matches and I read the papers. I don't work for Steve Bruce. I don't work for Newcastle. I don't know what's happening. But even everybody said it would be stupid to get rid of him because he just seems to have hit the ground running. And same as Holly said, his confidence, especially in this last couple of matches, you can see it growing and growing and growing. And it's nice to see somebody that actually has, you can see it on his face that he's got the pride and he wants to do well and he's chomping at the bit to get a start. So come on, Bruce, just give him a start. What are you going to lose? Just letting the kid start. Try it and see how it fares, Give him a go. Definitely.
Would you sign him, Lily?
Yes. I would.
Be interesting to see whether his price will go up. I know Holly would sign him, but I mean, Dave Harrison's saying apparently Arsenal will demand 25 million for Willock, which is fair. I mean, there's always that threat, I suppose, that issue where, he might not be as good the second time round, Holly. We talked about it with Kennedy, Kennedy was great that first season, but then when he came back again, he wasn't the player that we had previous for whatever reason.
That's always a risk that you're going to take, but I think that I would take that risk with Willock because of how young he is. He's 19 and he's got so many years ahead of him, and the amount of potentially shown in one season, I don't think that's just going to go away like that next season. I don't think that'll be the case. You've just got to persevere with him and coach him. And I think this is a side that he would thrive in because he is going to be one of the better players and he's going to be one of the permanent kind of starters in the team, which is amazing for a lad of that age because most players are like in their late 20s when they're a starting player. So I think that would be brilliant for Joe Willock and certainly be great to kickstart his career. But I'm not worried about that, to be honest, because yes, of course, we've seen that with Kennedy and players do that. But even if he does have a blip here and there, I'm sure it'll only be temporary and he'll get back to being good again.
Yeah, Chrissy says, Kraft, Lascelles, Clark, Shelby, Carroll, Gale, and I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but both Longstaffs would be gone. No point having Matty on the bench going to waste, and he's the better of them, to be honest, which is what Chrissy says. Gary's just saying, why would you keep Kraft? Stu, nice to see you on. He says, defo sign Willock. He says, the lad's proven himself as a sub compared with some of our players who just go through the motions. Troll says, Shelby is so slow, he would be beaten by a snail. Malcolm Taylor says, even folks, in my opinion, we must shift Shelby, Hendrick, Xavier, Carroll, Atsu and Gale. And Yano says, we have to play Shelby because he's the only player we have who's comfortable in possession and who can pass. Our only alternative is Shaw. Bede says the strong part of the Shelby's game, his long passing has went to pot this season and needs to be dropped. So yeah, lots of opinions coming in. Let's talk about Steve Bruce again, and this is interesting because the Chronicle, if you remember, did a poll must be about a month ago now, and I think the final outcome on that poll, Holly, was 95% of people wanted Steve Bruce to be sacked. Now I've seen that they're going to probably do a revised version of that and try and get the opinions. But what's your opinion, and let us know your opinion in the chat as well. Would you still want Steve Bruce sacked now?
Well, I remember discussing that poll at the time, and I was like, I can't believe it's only 95%. Like, who's the 5%? It must be Sunderland fans. So it just shows you how much we didn't want him here. And going into the next season, no, I do want him to leave, to be honest. But I think that he does deserve credit and praise for what he's done in the last few games, because he really has saved us when I think most of us were convinced we were down at one point. I'd accepted relegation like a while ago because we did just look dead and buried. There looked like there was no way out of it. And the fact that Steve Bruce has managed to sort out his differences with the players, get them back on his side and playing for him again as a team, that he does deserve credit for that, because that can't have been easy. To repair a broken dressing room in the time that he has done does deserve praise, because that is really a hard job to do. And I think if the takeover didn't go through, Mike Ashley would probably keep Steve Bruce next season, which I wouldn't want. I wouldn't be totally against it though either, because I don't think we could really get anyone much better, because with the club still being in limbo and Mike Ashley still being here, hardly spending any money, you're not going to attract a decent manager. So you are going to be stuck with just bargain basement, like old, outdated managers. So you may as well just stick with Bruce. Of course, though, if something was to happen in the summer, I would be letting him go. At least, though, if he does leave, he can leave with a little bit of respect now, knowing that he's actually stopped his boyhood club from going down.
Yeah, what about you, Lee? I mean, it's 28 days. I've just double-checked on the Chronicles website. 28 days since that poll was launched and those results came in. 95% wanted him out. What's your opinion now?
I'm a bit the same. I mean, to have turned the dressing room around as quickly as he seems to have done is amazing for anybody, especially with all the possible, this is happening, this isn't happening, this is happening, this is happening. We've got a mole, we've not got a mole. So for him to have turned the dressing room round and seem to have some form of clarity, and everybody seems to be getting on with each other, I think is amazing, because, you know, nobody likes to go to work if nobody's getting on with each other, you know, and it's the same in the football, because it's still a job at the end of the day. I remember seeing the poll. We all said the same thing as the 5% Sunderland or Middlesbrough fans. So I do remember that poll. And I think, yeah, I can see on the comments a lot of people saying, you know, we should still get rid of him. But also, he should be able to hold his head high, because we do seem to have turned a corner. We do seem to have done quite well. He seems to be putting quite an all right team together that are working well. Obviously, there's a few tweaks that need making. But again, you know, we could be doing a lot worse. We could have dropped more down than what we were. You know, we seem to be on a steady keel now. If the takeover happens, will we get somebody else? Possibly. But while Ashley's there, I agree with Hull. Nobody's going to want to come. We're going to be in limbo. No manager's going to want to come, not knowing what we can do. What can I do? What can't I do? Are you going to give me money? No, you're not going to give me money. What's the point of being here if you're not going to listen to what I want to say? But it hurts to say that I think Bruce has done really well. And, you know, respect to him, because it looked like it was crumbling around him and he seems to have picked up the pieces and we seem to have brushed it off and we're doing okay. So while there's harmony in the camp, that'll do me. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, I suppose.
Yeah, Billy Train Son says Bruce is making choices that are still wrong. Willock, but he's got lucky with a game changer. Players coming back. I'm still firmly wanting Bruce out, because this squad should never be that low. Yeah, I mean, You see, he's got it wrong, but Willock's come on and he's providing the goods every time he comes on. I mean, would he be the same if he was on? We'll only know. You know, maybe if he gets more game time, you know, once we're 100% safe. I mean, we all believe we are safe now anyway, but, you know, once that's finally done, is Bruce going to have to play for league position and try and get us high up the league because you get an extra $1 million or whatever it is for finishing in a higher place, or is he going to give players a chance? I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Tom Dixon says, if we get this takeover done, I think Bruce has got to go and get a better manager in who can take our club forward. Derek says that he heard Steve Bruce discovered the mole at the bottom of his garden. And George says, well said, that young girl. I think he's talking about you, Lee and Holly. It's hard to decide with you and your hair, your gold hair, which David Reed's pointed out. Gold hair, is it gold?
Yeah, it's rose gold.
It's rose gold, David. Come on, lad. Oh, get it right. George McVeigh says, well said, that young girl. Very articulate and a great balanced view. What happened to the other girls? Well, the left, George. It's as simple as that. Can't really say much more than that, mate. I'm sure you'll be able to find them elsewhere. Mark Tulip says, Shelby hasn't got the legs to play centre midfield. Why isn't he further forward with his passing ability? And Yano is back on again, says, I know results are good, but we still look awful at the back. And in midfield, why can't the players just pass the ball? Big shout out to our sponsors, as always. And it is a big thank you to Spider VPN for your internet security, who have been with us for the last 3 months. Big shout out to them. Also, a big shout out to Arcot Interiors. Visit their website for some fantastic kitchen ideas on www.arcotinteriors.com. You can call them on 0191 265 8663 or email them at enquiries@arcot.org.uk. And also a big shout out to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables and walls in Newcastle, and to Jab Signature. Their new boxing range is on its way, hopefully with the return of professional boxing as well. I've actually been discussing putting shows on today, which is great. Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner is how you subscribe. Simply click on that and you just click subscribe and that's it. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share this to your other social media. And drop into the chat, always some friendly chat in there. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you, as always, for your support. And if you're on podcasts and you're out and about walking your dog or going to shops, then you can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify and Podbean and others. Always well worth tuning in. And tonight I have got another one of those crime podcasts, which seems to cause complete hell on Twitter. And that is Darren G. Very interesting interview, this one. 1 hour interview with Darren. And he's quite a character. Well worth a watch. 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Different interview to what you'll be expecting, but well worth watching that one. Let's congratulate Alan Shearer today and Thierry Henry, Holly, both inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. Both looking smart as a dart there, holding up their nice little dust collectors, and well deserved for Big Al.
100%. He is the Premier League's all-time top goal scorer, so how can he not be in the Hall of Fame, really? So I'm really happy to see that he's been given that, and I love the big shirt frame thing that he had, and it had pictures of him playing for Newcastle, and I thought that was class as well.
It must be a bit of a nightmare for you. I mean, you're too young to remember him playing. I mean, I'm sure you must just enjoy watching those games on DVD or video or whatever, and just even on YouTube, just seeing how good a striker he was.
Yeah, well, I was only a toddler when Shearer retired, so I did miss him playing for us, but I get all the stories from all my family and stuff who all got to see him play, and I'm always very jealous. But I love watching old clips of his goals and stuff. It's just brilliant all the time. He always got the ball in the back of the net, and I love watching his penalties as well, because I've never seen anyone take penalties as calm as he did.
Yeah, certainly pressure penalties as well. Lele, he's a cracking player, but he's a great ambassador for the North East as well. He does a lot for charity. Obviously, he's got his own Alan Shearer Foundation. I mean, we remember a few months back we got him on the show, obviously, as the other podcast did, to promote that wonderful raffle that he did, for his shirt and his boots and his armband, etc. But he's since retirement, he's done very well, hasn't he, to fly the flag for the North East.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he doesn't hold back. He speaks very passionately, and it's nice to hear him when he does, because you can just see it. And like you said, he does all his charity stuff and everything. I remember him doing one of the first ever soccer raids as well. And that was just fun to watch because I like those kind of games when you've got the legends and the celebrities and everything. I did enjoy that bit on Match of the Day as well, when Steve Bruce was like moaning about what Shearer says about it. And I just thought that was brilliant, just because he doesn't hold back and you can tell when he's angry. And it's nice that they are supposed to be impartial on those kind of things. And you know they are, but you can see that he really, especially if we've had a bad game, you can see it the minute the show starts. You can just see it on Alan's face that, I don't want to talk about it. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, and he's such a down-to-earth kind of guy. And like you said, he does all his charity stuff as well. And like, I feel really old because Holly says she was only a toddler. And I'm like, oh my, I remember watching him. I remember when he signed for Newcastle, I was actually on holiday and we brought the paper. And my granddad's like, oh, some bloke's gone for stupid amounts of money to go and kick a football around. And I was like, all right, granddad, calm down. You know, and then since then, look how much the money's gone up and up and up. So, and back then he was a record signing. So yeah. And all my kids know who Alan Shearer is. They've been brought up with stories. So yeah, they're younger than Holly, and even they've watched him play on YouTube and take penalties. And yeah, I never knew anybody just keep his calm head. And yeah, he was just amazing. And also not Newcastle, but him and Sheringham when they used to play for England was just perfect because they knew where each other was and they could set each other up brilliantly. And you don't get that anymore. You don't see players like that anymore. It's a shame, really, because they were just brilliant to watch together. Fantastic to watch. So, yeah.
Yeah, there were... David Reed says, Holly, your hair looks great too. And yours, Steve. Thanks, mate. You have your head upside down. Only joking, mate. Thanks, David. Thanks. He's having a go because he thought he should have been invited to the show last night, but it wasn't the 5-minute rant, David. But don't worry, we'll get it back, mate. It will be back. You can have you'll have a list as long as you're on by next week for stuff that you're going to bring on. Keith Roll says, well deserved for Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry. As a neutral, Thierry Henry was my favourite overseas Premier League player that played for another club when he played in the Arsenal's invincible side. Yeah, Keith, he was good. And Keith, well done on your debut on Loaded HQ, Loaded Mag the other night. Great to finally see you. Tom says, Holly, when I was young, I was jealous of stories of Milburn and McDonald. Then I got to see Shearer. Hopefully we'll have another great number 9 that you'll be able to enjoy. We have, man, Tom. Joe Linton. Holly, are you getting as much enjoyment out of Big Joe?
I don't think so, but you never know. There's still time.
Well, you've been very kind there. You've definitely been very kind. Let's talk a little bit about the Super League, Holly. Grand Theft Football. I thought that was really funny when somebody tweeted that the other day. Very, very true as well. I mean, wow, what a week. I mean, we did the show on Monday, and then all hell had broken loose, hadn't it? You know, the Super League, and they were all going to go off and do what they wanted to do. And it's been a crazy week. We've had fan protests. We've had resignations, we've had everything, haven't we? And it rightly so, it was condemned throughout football.
Yeah, I was so pleased when all of the English clubs pulled out of it because it was totally wrong. It should never have been allowed to happen in the first place. And I think the protests from Arsenal and Chelsea fans were outstanding. I think that's really, really good. They turned out in their numbers and they were really powerful and made their voice heard. I wish that Newcastle fans could take a leaf out of their book, to be honest, when it comes to our protests, because I don't think they've been the best over the years, certainly recent years anyway. But it is. And then obviously Mourinho got sacked, but I do believe that was something to do with the ESL. Just the timing of it seemed a bit suspicious, because I think there's been times before where I expected him to go early on in the season and he never did. And now it just seems a big coincidence that he'd leave now. So whether he's being sacked or whether he's kind of said like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with this European Super League and then kind of got sacked that way, I don't know. And then obviously Klopp wasn't happy, so I think that would have had a big impact on Liverpool's decision to stay in it, because I think Jurgen Klopp has been brilliant for Liverpool, and they won't want him to go anywhere anytime soon. Then we saw Jordan Henderson going to have a meeting with all the Premier League captains, which I thought was brilliant from him. I do rate Jordan Henderson as a professional. I think he's really good, and fair play to him for organising that meeting. I know it didn't end up happening, but just trying to do something about it, because I think the players can see that English football is being taken away from the English fans, and they're trying to turn it into something it's not, and kind of make the game more money orientated, as if it isn't enough money orientated already. It's just getting beyond a joke now, but thankfully we've sorted it all out. I do hope that the Premier League and the FA takes more kind of punishments towards them, because I still don't feel like they've had enough. They've kind of been let off with it lightly if it ends now and we just kind of forget about it. And I think something needs to happen. Whether it will or not, it probably won't, let's be real. But you've got to think now, hopefully the Premier League will wake up, open their eyes and see that the big six aren't their pals. Like, they need to stop looking out for them, because they aren't looking out for the Premier League.
Yeah, they're not. Well, Lily, it was a disgrace, wasn't it? You didn't join us last week. We were talking about this. What did you think when you saw that? I mean, it was just greed, wasn't it?
It was just how it all came about. I mean, we got Sky Sports Anderson was leaving for work. It had been announced, and it just seemed to go crazy, absolutely crazy. And all I did was leave the house to go to work, and Dom's messaged me, Mourinho's been sacked. I was like, I've literally just left the house. What? And it was like, oh, apparently it's because he didn't think it was fair for the team to go into training when nobody knew that this was coming out. And then you think, well, they've sacked him and then it fell through. So why have you sacked him? It's all fallen through now. And it was just a really crazy couple of days, wasn't it? I mean, first of all, did the other clubs feel like they had to drop out because of the pressure? And same as Holly said, you know, Jurgen Klopp was very vocal. I kept saying to Dominic, it'll be Jurgen next, he'll be going next, he'll be going next, he'll be going next. Because I thoroughly thought that that's what was going to happen. But then I did say to Dominic one thing, are they going to be responsible now? Because obviously there was them and the other teams, weren't they? Did they have to pay anything into it? Are the teams that are still possibly going ahead going to demand compensation for it? You know, is there going to be more of a backlash that we don't know about? It all just seemed very sneaky though as well. But for once, watching Gary Neville and hearing him speak about it was just like, wow. Do you know what I mean? Him and Jamie Carragher were just amazing in that 24, 48 hour period. It was just absolutely crazy. And I just think it is money led, let's face it, we all know it is. But then a lot of valid points came from that where, oh, if we're going to do this, you're not going to get promoted and you're not going to get... It's literally just going to be the same teams playing each other all the time. Right, so where are they going to play? Oh, I've got to play somewhere neutral. So then fans were going to have to go here, there and everywhere to watch. And obviously Sky Sports wasn't going to show it or any of that. So that apparently Dominic said he'd heard that Disney were being approached as well to show the matches. So I don't think it was thought through very well. But obviously they had been planning it for such a long time. But I don't think they expected the fallout from it. And I think it's the fallout. And I think there's going to be continuous fallout from it. Like, you know, like we've said before, are they going to be punished for it? Are they going to stop people from playing? But then the management and the players didn't know anything about it. And that to me was I bet that was very awkward when they did finally go to training after reading, because Twitter exploded as well, didn't it? Let's face it, it all just went crazy. And I think I like the T-shirts that Leeds made. I thought that was quite, you know, to whip them up as quick as they did for the Leeds players to have them T-shirts. I thought it shows you just there. This is how we all feel about it. But is it a case of it's the Americans that are trying to get more money out of English clubs and not understanding actually what British football means to the fans? You know, it's their opinion and they thought they knew better, which clearly they didn't in the end. So... But I think there's going to be more fallout from it, definitely going to be more fallout to come. Watch this space kind of thing to see what happens.
Yeah, Malky, he says, can I ask, once our status in the league's achieved, do you think the likes of Anderson, Matty Longstaff, Atsu and others will get a game, Holly?
No, unfortunately not. I think that Anderson, I'd like to see him get more of a chance, but I don't think he will. I think Matty Longstaff's done under Steve Bruce at Newcastle. I don't think that he's going to get any more game time. And Christian Atsu, I just don't think he's good enough anymore. He did a decent job in the Championship, but now I think it's time to move on, and he's not good enough for the Premier League.
Same question to you, Lily. Do you think these players, the fringe players, will get a run out? Do you think Bruce is going to be in that kind of mood?
No. If maybe, I'm going to best send you out just for a little bit. But no, I don't think. No, I think he knows who he wants to play and when he wants to play him. And unfortunately, I think them fringe players just aren't going to be getting any time anytime soon.
Yeah, Bobby, yeah, we've just talked about that on the show. You might have just missed it. But yeah, look, I mean, delighted that Alan Shearer's got that award and been inducted, and so he should be. And there's probably a few other former Newcastle players who will probably feature, you would imagine. Colin says, Willock reminds me of a young Rob Lee. Trolls talking about the Super League and that is saying if there's no sanctions for the six and the Big 14 need to go to the streets and say this is not acceptable. Yeah, I mean, punishment-wise, Holly, they haven't been punished yet. What would you say is a fair punishment? Would you say a points deduction? Would you say a ban from Europe for a couple of years, a ban in the transfer market, or a combination of these kind of things?
I'd say a combination. I don't think you can be harsh enough when it comes to this, because if it had went ahead, the chaos that would have caused would have been absolutely irreparable, and it would have ruined English football forever, really. So they shouldn't be allowed to just get away with it at all. I don't think we're going to see the types of punishment that is deserved for it. I would say the best thing is probably a ban from Europe for a few seasons and probably some really heavy fines. And I'm not just talking like a few million, because that's nothing to them. We're talking like heavy, over 100 million. Like, they can afford it, they should pay it. Whatever they were going to make from that European Super League, I think that's what they should have to pay in fines. Of course, you could go to the length saying, I think they should get relegated, but that would never happen. So it's just unrealistic, really. And points deduction, I don't think that'll happen either. It would be a good thing. And then you'd probably see West Ham winning the league, weirdly, if that was to happen, which would be really bizarre. But yeah, I think probably heavy fines and ban from Europe would be the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, Lee, I mean, punishments, have been talked about, and a lot of people saying they should do this and do that. What would you like to see happen to the greedy six?
See, I've put a lot of thought into this. I think they should have some kind of, whether it's a fine, whatever. But also, it's one of those. But then, what effect is that going to actually have on the players of these teams? Because they didn't know anything about it. So it's one of those. Yes, the Super Six. Because let's face it, they're not even all the top 6 teams anymore. But should they get fined? Should they get deductions? Should they get transfer bans for a window, 2 windows, whatever? But then the players are then going to get a knock-on effect, and I don't think it's fair on the players when they didn't know anything about it. So it's one of those where I do feel they need to have something happen to them, because what they did was sneaky. But again, it's the owners as opposed to the players and the management. So why should the players then be penalised for something that happened that they didn't have anything to do with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, no one's really touched on it. Should the players be punished for something that the owners have done? The consensus of opinion really seems to be heavy fine and points deducted, but that comes back to the players. You know what I mean? And ultimately, do they deserve to be punished? If you finished, you've worked all season and you finished in a Champions League position, do you deserve to have that taken away from you because your owner's been too greedy? It is interesting. Lots of comments coming in about that. Bede says, should have their vote taken away so the remaining 14 have the power. Rob Lee says it will be left till the end of the season. Chrissy says, have the greedy 6 not been banned from future meetings with the Premier League? I don't know. Gary says, for these top 6 clubs who will get fines, I think for those clubs who get fines should put the money towards charity, which is a positive thing to do. What do we think of that idea? Do you agree with that, Holly?
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think. And especially after the COVID pandemic, going towards like food banks and stuff like that would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, Leila, you're shaking, you're nodding your head as well, so you obviously think that would be a good idea. And maybe say, filter it down to the lower league clubs, I mean, there's a lot of these clubs that are suffering, we don't know, how badly these lower league clubs like Sunderland are suffering. They've got 45,000 capacity stadiums where, on a match day they don't fill them, but, they've had nobody in for a year. That's going to take a financial toll on them. So money going to them in the lower league clubs, the non-league clubs, maybe that's a good idea as well,
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's important that we protect grassroots football as well. because without the lower leagues, it just kind of takes away the point in football, because you want teams to go up and down and have a competition, like in the FA Cup and stuff. You don't want to just have the Premier League, and those teams would have been hit hard as well because they don't have the TV money and stuff that we get in the Premier League. So it is important to protect those clubs.
Yeah, Mark says, with the amount of debt Spurs have, their punishment will be self-inflicted with the star players leaving and the revenue drops along with their place in the top 6. Roger says, points deduction and a Euro ban for me. Points are what other smaller teams get. So why should they not get them? 35 points off or starting with minus 35. Wow, Roger, that is harsh. Doug Hall says, I hope Masters realises they were stringing him along and they weren't really his mate. Yeah, a lot of people combining this with our takeover and believe that was a reason why our takeover didn't go through. Billy says every club who've been punished has been loss of points for financial irregularities, has fans and players who've suffered. Yeah, you're right. Terry says just take their vote away for so many seasons. And Paul says players and fans always suffer the consequences of poor ownership. That's just the way it is. These 6 should be no different. Derek, lots of comments coming in. Remove their influence. No vote on anything. Affect the league and its rules. And Julie says, how many of the big 6 drag their feet over the support package for the lower leagues, do you reckon? Very, very true. John says, fine them 100 million. Give it to the lower leagues, ban them from Europe for 2 years, put a 2-year transfer embargo on them and let their fans take it up with them. Great shout, John. The 6 should be thrown into that black hole Kieran was in, says Chrissy. Very funny. Yeah, you've got to watch last night's show to appreciate that. Darren says, did anyone care when Sheffield Wednesday and other clubs' players below the EPL had points deducted? Darren, another good point. Can't disagree with anybody in the chat tonight. Stu's quite active tonight. He has said Bruce out already, but he's coming up with some good points. He says all 6 clubs should be punished heavily, but Richard Masters would probably reward these clubs for returning. It wouldn't put it past him, would you? Let's look ahead to the weekend's game. And Newcastle, of course, take on Arsenal. That is a Sunday kickoff this week. And that will be a home game, and it is a 2:00 kickoff, and the game will be shown live on Sky Sports. Newcastle going into the game unbeaten in their last 5 home fixtures, 2 wins and 3 draws. Of course, winning 3-2 over West Ham the last time we played at home. This will be a chance to record back-to-back Premier League wins on the home ground for the first time this season. The last 4 meetings of Newcastle and Arsenal in all competitions, home and away, it's been 0-0 at half-time. Strange stat. Newcastle injuries, obviously very, very, very early at the minute, but we know that Lascelles, Hayden, Darlow and Fraser are all out. And that we know that Joe Willock will be ineligible to play because he is playing his parent club, Arsenal. And of course, Arsenal have a big game midweek. They have their Europa League semi-final against Villarreal. It is the first leg in Spain on Thursday night. So, big game this, Holly. And a few weeks ago, we wouldn't have been looking at this and saying we could win this, but the confidence that is surrounding Newcastle United and its supporters after this recent run, I think a lot of people will be looking at this, and especially looking at Arsenal's current form and looking at the fact that they've got a big game on Thursday, and this game's jammed in between the two legs of the semi-final. Newcastle will be looking at this and thinking we can get 3 points out of this.
I think we can. I'll back us for a 1-0 win. I think. And I think that for Arsenal, there's nothing to really play for because they're not going to make like the kind of top 6 or whatever of the Premier League. There's nothing much to play for, and I think that they'll prioritise the European game a lot more. That's what I'd certainly do if I was in charge of Arsenal anyway, because it is more of an interesting and more of a game with a bit more meaning than just playing Newcastle. So I think we can get the 1-0 win. I don't see why not. I don't think Arsenal's been particularly fantastic. We're on a win and run at the moment, or at least a good run where we're picking up points. And there's no reason why we can't. I mean, we're full of confidence, and long may that continue. I don't see any reason that'll stop us. Arsenal's one of the teams that I normally don't like to play. I just get nervy when we play Arsenal, but at the moment, I really think we can get something.
Lily, what about you? Is it are you as confident as Holly and me?
Do you know what? Yeah, I am. I mean, I remember if Arsenal are smack bang in between two important games, I know what they've done in the past because I actually remember going to watch them at Pride Park. They don't tend to send out the A team against for that if they're concentrating on something else, because that's what they did against Derby once. They sent out like the B team rather than the main team. And I think, like you've just said, if they're smack bang in between them two games, then that is possibly what they are going to do at the weekend. But I think, do you know what? Same as Holly's just said, we're doing really well at the moment. We seem to be on the ball. We seem to have found our momentum. And I'd take a cheeky win, yeah. Maybe just like a 1-0 possibly. I'd like to possibly say maybe 2, but let's not get too carried away with ourselves. But I think we are doing really well at the minute, and I would quite happy to take. I think we can win it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Billy says Martinelli and Smith Rowe are the dangers for them. They're obviously got a bit of a striker issue as well, but we've got players on form, Holly, haven't we? ASM has come back in. He's made a big difference. I know we're going to be missing Willock, which is a bit of a blow, but this team's got to have confidence, and like we've already discussed it tonight. Dubravka, Ritchie, Murphy, and Sean Longstaff have all made a big difference. And with the likes of Joe Linton, playing better than he's probably played since he pulled on a black and white shirt, we go into this game with a lot of confidence.
We do. I think that the mentality around the team is so much more positive now than it was a few weeks ago. And I think a lot of people underestimate Newcastle because our squad is actually decent. We haven't played to our full ability throughout the season, but we have got some talented players within that squad. And I didn't get to see Callum Wilson come on as a sub, but obviously he scored. So hopefully he is getting back to his best now. That'll be another massive threat for him. And I would like to see him maybe play most of the game, if not start, because I think he should be ready to come back into the side soon. St. Maximin, of course, will be a massive player. And I think we have got a lot of talent regardless of whether Willock's in the side or not.
No, Troll's saying, is Wilson injured? Don't think so. I think Wilson's fine. There's no news on Wilson being injured. But yeah, I mean, would you go for an unchanged team, Lily?
I don't know. I mean, it's
why change something that's working though? That would be my philosophy. He didn't do it at Anfield, and I think a lot of people were expecting him to change things at Anfield, but he left it as it was.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, isn't it? It seems to be working, so why mess with it as it's going? Just start. I don't know. Maybe start the way you have been, and if you need to change it up during the game, then that's what your substitutes are for. But like I said, we seem to have found his rhythm, so don't mess with it if it's working. Just keep doing what you're doing. But I think maybe he is setting this up for Wilson's main game. Maybe who knows what goes on in Steve Bruce's head. I don't think Steve Bruce knows what's going on in Steve Bruce's head, to be fair. So, I guess
give us a prediction, Lily.
Yeah, I think 1. I say 1-0. Dominic stood at the bottom of the stairs going, 2. It's going to be 2. So he thinks 2-0 and I think 1-0. So we're both going for a win in the Moore household.
Holly, what about you?
Yeah, I said a 1-0.
Yeah, you're going to go for 1-0. That's great stuff. Before we finish tonight, it's more sad news, I'm afraid. We're going to pay respects tonight to poor David Craggs, who has lost his battle against a short illness. I did meet David when he was the chairman of the Newcastle United London Supporters Club back in the 1990s. I saw him at many away grounds, and like a lot of Newcastle fans, when you go to home games, away games, you're always on nodding terms, but did bump into him on numerous occasions, and he'll be a big miss to the Newcastle United fraternity. I know that Biffa and the lads at NUFC.com as well were very, very close with David, so my thoughts with the family and thoughts with him, and I'm sure that a lot of Newcastle fans out there will pay their own respects to David, but that's sad news that has reached us today. Don't forget, we as always have an action-packed week. I'm still able to do 7 shows this week, so tomorrow night, join me at 6 o'clock for the Liam Kennedy show. Always one which I know the fans look forward to. Wednesday night, Tom Dixon's given us a right stinker for the retro show. Hull City. Oh my God! And the lads are already grumbling and moaning in our Twitter chat about that one. But they're getting there, Tom. They're getting there. So we'll still have an hour's worth of retro chat about Hull City. Thursday night sees myself and Supermac and John Gibson back together. And then Friday night, we are back to the Amigos night. So looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And don't forget the Darren G interview at 8 o'clock tonight. Well worth watching, only an hour long. And then, I'll be back tomorrow night. So for tonight, that's it. Thank you to Holly. Thank you to Lily. Look forward to seeing you next Monday night. Take care. Good night.
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 Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're at.